Hi, hello, welcome to IAS Factors Editorial Summary, and this is exclusively for UPSC 2026. And for any other students who find it editorials are very difficult, you can watch the class. And this is class number 2. If you've not watched our first session, go back and you can also take a look at that. So let's start the session, and with me, Arjun R Shankar. You can read more about this. And why editorials? Because obviously it has a sleepy language and everybody finds it very difficult to understand and read the editorials. And it is the gold mine of UPSC. When you take both prelims as well as mains, there are a lot of questions that can be directly from the editorials, and that's why it is very important. And this is the way how we work. We are developing the themes first. Every editorial is a theme, and all you need to know is one theme and minimum number of points regarding that. That is the best way of learning an editorial. So every editorial is a theme, and you need to get some points for that. That is the approach. And let's go into today's important topics and start off with the first important topic of the editorial of the day. Trump drops a bomb on US nuclear weapons testing. So, this is a small idea that has now come out. So, that gives us a larger idea. What is this editorial talking about? So, I'll quickly tell you what this editorial is all about, and most probably I'll give you an idea of why this editorial is important. And okay, let's quickly move. So, first of all, USA is actually at this place, US is as this place, and you have China at this place, and you also have Russia. So this is a kind of a triangle, and immediate point is US has decided that it is going for a nuclear test after so many years. So how can you go for a nuclear test? The countries are asking, how can you do a nuclear test? Because there are a lot of things, treaties like CTBT. That's the key important thing. There are a lot of treaties like CTBT, NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty, Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, so the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. So there are a lot of treaties. So if US goes for a nuclear test, because they, why US wants this? Because it believes that Russia is also testing its nuclear arsenal. So US said we'll also test it. But the problem is when US tests it, China automatically also has another incentive or an idea to go and test nuclear power. When China is also doing it, India becomes alarmed, and India is also at this point. So if one country tests a nuclear power, everybody will start testing it. So what is the point of CTBT and NPT here? That is something that we have to be understanding at this point. So this is the main concept, and let's apply the filter. Let's stain it, the editorial, and get the most important topic. So this is the story. Now we'll take the points. So one by one, let's understand. After 33 years of no nuclear testing, US President said US will resume nuclear weapon testing. So it is indirectly hinting at Russia. If Russia can do that, United States of America can also do that. That is the line of thinking. Russia had just announced that it will actually going to test a cruise missile, and that is what Russia is actually trying to test Burevestnik, which Americans and the NATO call as the Skyfall. This is not here. You can see in this channel, just go scroll down, you can watch my video on Burevestnik. What is the capacity of Burevestnik? So this is the main reason why America wants to go for a test. So what is the fear that the world has? It's because the world may enter another nuclear arms race. That's the number one fear. So that is what, if one country tests, everybody will start testing it. That's the idea behind this. So I hope you got an idea. And now coming back, I'll give you some few important explainers here, because these explainers can be very important. What is the concept of CTBT? China will also start doing it. So what is this Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty? So just understand, this is a treaty which makes the countries limit their nuclear arsenal. They cannot create nuclear explosion only under certain circumstances. For certain uses you can do it, but you cannot do a normal nuclear power explosion just for the sake of defense. So what is CTBT? Is India part of this? Let's quickly find it out. It's an international treaty, bans all nuclear explosions. underground, underwater, atmospheric, outer space, everything. That is also, this can be also a prelims question. Everything, even outside, they have banned it. And don't develop nuclear weapons. So this is the CTBT, the concept of CTBT. You cannot test it anywhere. 1996, it was adopted by the UN and applies to military, peaceful, etc. And it has also got something called IMS. All these can be important terms. What is an IMS? Is an international monetary system. It can detect any nuclear test. As an inspection site team, everybody can actually make a visit to. 44 specific countries with nuclear technology must ratify it, and obviously USA, China, India, Pakistan, North Korea have not signed it. So it's not legally in effect. So you can understand 44 countries. India, see, whenever you get all these things, you need to be very curious. Is India part of this? India is not part. Pakistan is not part. So this is the CTBT. And also, let me give you another example of it. Now, why are they talking about START? The Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, which limits, it is actually signed between USA and Russia. And the biggest thing is 2026 is the year this START is expiring. Both the countries that sign START, that means you need to limit your nuclear warheads. So this is also in discussion. And NPT, what is this NPT? Let's get few points about NPT because it is also similar. Stop the spread of nuclear weapons. 1968 and came in 1970. So it is very, very older than the CTBT. That was in 96. This is in 1970. So remember that this is the first one. So non-proliferation of nuclear weapons and NPT is one important thing. And you can take the other important aspects. Only the 5 countries that had nuclear powers before 1967 can legally keep them. USA, Russia, UK, France and China. So that they put a 1967 cutoff. So do you think other countries will agree with this? Only who have done before 1967 can do that. Nobody will be... See, you cannot develop or acquire nuclear weapons. Who is going to listen to this? That is the reason why a lot of countries have not signed it. And India... Countries can use nuclear energy for electricity, medicine, research, provided that you are under IAEA safeguard. If IAEA is mandating that, under the safeguard, you can do that. But don't you think it's a discriminatory thing? That is why 191 countries are members. Only 4 UN members are outside. India, Pakistan, Israel, and North Korea. USA need not worry about this because USA can keep the nuclear weapons as per the 1967 treaty. That's the discriminatory clause. India, Pakistan, Israel, and North Korea joined, but it withdrew. So this is NPT. So have an idea. This was the when it comes to nuclear power, you need to know few things. That was the basic idea of keeping this thing. Now let's quickly move on to the other editorial. Cruising ahead, India's shipping sector needs help from the government to thrive. Now let me tell you the story first. I'll tell you the story. See, there are 2 important things. One, we can call one as the ports, because ports in India gives very important, because infrastructure, ports is very important. And there is another important thing which is called shipping. See, only if you have the ports, you have shippings. So imagine, all these years, the editorial says India has only given more importance to construction of ports. But India has not thought about or given adequate importance to shipping. Taken examples of the Shipping Corporation of India. We have only developed the ports in India. We always believe that creating infrastructure is the best thing. But unfortunately, we did not give maximum importance to ships and ship making, shipping, etc. So even Shipping Corporation of India is now, it has performed very badly and now it has been privatized. So after the COVID, now we have realized that controlling the ship market and the shipping lanes is also a big thing for India. So we have not thought about so far, what we have done, we have only given trainings to make better seamen, seafarers. We have given trainings for them so that they can work in the other ships. We haven't thought seriously about the shipping. In this National Maritime Week, the Prime Minister and the group of government, the people officially believe that we need to focus on shipping. That's the story. Now let's apply the filter. I hope you got the introductory part. Now let's take the point. We had the Maritime Week, and shipping is not just a business, it's a value. So shipping means we need to create more shipping value, not only port. We need to think beyond the ports. That is the theme of this. So even under the LPG, liberalization, privatization, globalization, it lost its priority. Shipping lost its priority, and government believed that the market forces will run it. India does not need to own ships, we need to own ports. That thing has gone. And now maybe ports are very crucial. That's why we are changing our ideology. We were only doing in training seafarers to work on foreign ships, exchange foreign. When you do this, these people will bring money to the economy. So you get a foreign exchange back and you get a remittance back. So now we need to think beyond the ports. That is the idea of this. So I told you already, the Shipping Corporation of India was once a global leader in ship ownership, but that fell. And later on, SEI almost got privatized. So that is a hard reality. And COVID showed that we heavily relied on foreign-owned ships. And that was a point when India realized that we don't have a fleet of the ships or the shipping lanes that India can control. That was a vulnerability that COVID exposed. So all these points are already being given. Now owning ships is equal to strategic stability. Foreign dependence is danger. So we need to strengthen Shipping Corporation of India's fleet once again. So we need to own it once again. This is the basic simple idea of this editorial. And so usually ports are under the landlord model. Government owns the port, just like we have the Vizhinjam port in Trivandrum. It is the PPP mode. It is between the government, central government, state government, as well as the private partners. So it's like a landlord model. Somebody owns the port, somebody else manages the port. So there is revenue coming in, and both of them can take a revenue share. So it does not create a burden on the government also. That is the key thing that we have to understand here. Okay, and now India strongly believes that this is something that you can even write in the mains answers. Now we believe India needs to create more LNG carriers, green fuel ships, next generation vessels are all India's concern. Now, if we want to build ships, this is the future. LNG carriers, green fuel ships, next generation vehicles are something that India should really look at. So this is what the editorial quickly says. And I think that's fair enough. You got a good idea about this. And the next is a very interesting editorial. Engage Taliban, don't recognize them. So this is also from the perspective of the editorial. And definitely whatever points we are discussing, it is always, whenever the editorial comes, the editorial lead columns come, it comes from the perspective of the author who has written it. You may not agree with that, but you need to have your own opinion. I'll tell you the story. The story cut short being, Afghanistan is an important place, and what happened is Afghanistan was taken over. Afghanistan was taken over by Taliban. That is the most important thing. Afghanistan was taken over by Taliban. But what happened is, when Taliban came, nobody is recognizing, only some countries or some areas are recognizing Taliban. Will India recognize Taliban? Because Taliban apparently was a terrorist organization in the back. Now they're controlling this whole thing. So the key question comes, Taliban also had a big time dispute between Pakistan. So this is the equation. Taliban had a big time fight between Pakistan. So Taliban versus Pakistan, because Pakistan used to control Taliban or Afghanistan. So Taliban and Afghanistan was controlled by Pakistan, and Taliban was kept as a puppet. But now Taliban does not like it. So obviously Pakistan versus Taliban or Pakistan versus Afghanistan is already here. And here comes the equation India. India at this equation. India obviously has a problem with Pakistan, and the enemies are friend. So India does not like Pakistan, but Taliban does not like Pakistan. So India can be friends with Taliban. So you have a common enemy. So in this case, the real question is, should we acknowledge Taliban or not? But also the editorial also clearly says Taliban was also one of the most important terrorist breeding ground. In Afghanistan, you had almost all the terrorist organizations working in Afghanistan. So, and what is the status of women in Taliban? So, if India accepts such a country or such a group of people, then what do you think about India's stand? That is a key question, and this is the story of the editorial. Now, let's quickly understand the points. For the perspective, let's apply the filter. staying and get the most important core content. Let's go. So Taliban was basically an insurgent group. Point number one. Now they have a problem with the old border dispute. Pakistan versus Afghanistan, 2,640 kilometers border is now in dispute. Enemy's enemy is friend. Afghanistan's enemy is Pakistan. India's enemy is Pakistan. So both of us have share a common enemy. We become friends. This is the attitude that the government might show in diplomacy. The most important thing, Taliban's foreign minister Amir Khan Muttaqi visited New Delhi, probably the highest level of Taliban contact, and it's India has welcomed him. That means India is showing opening its arm to Taliban, and India, you know why? Because India has a lot of interest in Afghanistan, because India economically has supported a lot of money. India is building projects. India has invested billions of dollars in Afghanistan. So India needs to get back something. You cannot break it. And also about the embassies, we need to create. Once Taliban came in, we stopped everything, embassies, everything. But now it's time to rebuild it, and whether it is the right strategy or not, you need to think about it. Now this is how it works, and we are upgrading the technical mission, opening a full-time embassy, restarting infrastructure, welfare project. And Taliban has said, promised India that we will not allow any group to use our territory against each other. We will not create a terrorist ground. This is a promise that Afghanis made. And why India is engaging Taliban? We have three important points. We'll take one. One, I already told you the past investment. 3 billion, dams, parliament, building, road, school. You cannot stop it all of a sudden, because if we lose that money. So India has an interest. This is point number one. And point number two, being prevent, because most in 1990s terrorism targeting from India, everything came from Afghanistan. So if we, and present Taliban, they call it 2.0, they said we are not repeating the terrorism. So India is locking the Taliban, making sure that terrorism is not coming from there. So this is an indirect lock that India might put in. And make sure that Taliban will not be Pakistan's puppet. If Taliban and Afghanistan becomes Pakistan puppets, then Afghanistan and Taliban is a problem for India. So it's an indirect way to lock that it does not fall into Pakistan's hand, and that is good for India also, strategically. So this is a beautiful, brilliant diplomatic planning that India does, but we don't know the results yet. So this is the most important, and also in this concept, we need to understand an important thing that maybe you haven't heard about this thing. Let's hear about what is the concept of before that. Because one thing why a lot of people believe that Taliban needs to be recognized, because Taliban seem more stable than 1990s. So Taliban 2.0 is much more better than the previous terrorist organization, and the National Resistance Front is weak. So what is this NRF? I'll tell you what is this NRF. NRF is a counter organization which is against Taliban. I'll tell you a few things. And major threats to Taliban now come from the Islamic State and not from regional nations. And Russia, China has all started to recognize Taliban. So maybe India should not look back. That is an idea. So what is this concept of National Resistance Front? They are a group of people who, he is the son of a commander. He believes that they believe that they are against Taliban. But the problem is there are only few people in number. So not a formidable force to defeat the Taliban. It's an anti-Taliban group. Ahmad Massoud, the son of legendary commander Ahmad Shah Massoud. It was formed in 2021 when Taliban took over Afghanistan, mainly in the Panjshir Valley and some northern Afghanistan. They don't have the money or the weapons to counter Taliban. It's only limited. They face shortage, etc. So that's the main problem. So, and why India should not, this is purely the observation of the author of the editorial, but still, as a pro and con, we need to think why India should not recognize Taliban. Maybe because Taliban have not changed. Same ideology. They still believe in totalitarian religious authority. And number second, what is the women's status? What have they done to the women? So just imagine the women's right, and India is a country which give massive importance, prime most importance to women's right. So they have banned girls' education, segregate men and women in public, almost total exclusion of women. So this is the important point. And next is Afghanistan is still the headquarters of so many terrorist grounds. Take a look at that. all the foreign terrorist group in Al-Qaeda, Pakistani Taliban, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan, all of this is actually in Afghanistan. So that is why we need to be thinking twice whether we need to go with that. So this is the most important point. That was a bit lengthy editorial, but it has got a lot of points, and I'm sure in terms of India, Taliban, Afghanistan, you have got an important idea regarding that. Now quickly move on to the vision of model youth Gram Sabhas. So very important article from Polity Governance. And let's break this. I'll give you the story of this, the Gram Sabhas. Putting it shortly, I'll give you the immediate idea. So Gram Sabha, let's call it the GS. It is the root, because Panchayati Raj, it is the root of the development in India. One second, let me. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so I'll quickly come back. So Gram Sabha, let's call it the GS. It is the most important thing for local self-government because it is a grassroots level. But you know what is the problem in India? Everybody talks about Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, or even the legislative assemblies of states, Vidhan Sabhas. So what happens is there is an over glorification of these constitutional positions or important democratic systems, and even there are so many things like the mock parliament, the mock UN. Everybody talks about Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha, Parliament, and nobody talks about the Gram Sabha. Even children are taught to be they in the mock UNs, mock parliaments. They emulate being in the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, in the Legislative Assembly. Nobody wants to discuss the Gram Sabha, the root level, the village level. If nobody discusses about Gram Sabha, how do you think Gram Sabha is going to be? There is a key question. Do you want to be an MP? And how many of you want to be a Sarpanch? Nobody wants to be a Sarpanch. Then everybody is ignoring Gram Sabha. That is why government has actually come up with a new program called Model Gram Sabha. So this is the key story of the editorial. Now I hope you got the story. Now let's quickly take the points. Points means let's apply the filter. Let's apply the filter and go quickly to the content. Okay. So I hope this idea is clear. So we celebrate Lok Sabha, Vidhan Sabha, Youth Parliament, Model UN, but Gram Sabha gets almost no attention. This is the pure, direct, participatory and accountable system that decides the development, but nobody is interested in this. If nobody is interested, how do you think the grassroots level things are going to flourish in India? That's a good question to be asked. And now let's get into the other important points. So nobody is coming forward for Gram Sabha. So government thought that it's time. Maybe we should think about the Gram Sabha. We should create programs so that there are various other things that can be done. So 1 second. Okay. Now it's fine. Okay. Okay, now it's fine. Sorry for the delay. So let's take some constitutional aspect. Article 243A, 73rd Amendment defines that what is a Gram Sabha? It can be a prelims question. All registered voters in a village, they discuss budgets, development plans, and governance issues. So indirectly, participatory democracy, transparency, accountability. So all this is only in paper. The real participation is absolutely low because nobody is interested. So remember this Article 243, 73rd Amendment, all mandates that all these things are important. And if you want to, how many of you want to become a Sarpanch? No student is interested in this. Everybody focuses on Lok Sabha, Vidhan Sabha, etc. So there should be a change. And that is the reason why government has created model, just like mock parliament, we have a model youth Gram Sabha launched by the Ministry of Panchayati Raj in association with the tribal ministry, aspirational Bharat collaboration. We will bring Gram Sabha process into schools and colleges and make local governance experiential and not theoretical in the textbooks. Let them experience this. Let's like the mock parliament. Why not? Why don't we have this model? That is why we have Loktantra Ki Pathshala. We have this launch of model youth Gram Sabha. Let the students also discuss this. This is a very good idea. You can write this. So they'll play the role of Sarpanch, ward members, health workers, junior engineers, frontline official, village budgets, infrastructure. Just like what happens People know what's happening inside a parliament and legislative assembly. They don't know what is happening inside Gram Sabha. That is why you need more of this. You can write all these points. So that was the basic idea of this editorial, was to get a brief idea on all those concepts. Okay, so now maybe you can use all these points whenever you want to use whenever you get a polity related, governance related questions. You can definitely use these points to write your answers. So now I hope I hope you get an idea why we need to have this model youth Gram Sabha and why it is playing a very important role. Okay, so now quickly moving on to the next important, the pitfalls of climate alarmism. That is the concept. So we need to identify why this topic is important, is because this also comes from the perspective of Bill Gates. It comes from the perspective of Bill Gates, and I'll tell you why Bill Gates and climate change is very important. Let's identify the story first, and I'll tell you the story. Climate change is undoubtedly one of the most important problems that the world is facing. And this is actually tied up with Bill Gates now. You know why? Because this is a small editorial, because Bill Gates was a man who talked about climate change, and when Bill Gates, one of the richest man in the world, talks about climate change, people listen to it. So people, the business, the CEOs, the institution, everybody takes it seriously. Initially, Bill Gates was doing good, but later on, Bill Gates' strategy shifted. He shifted to an alarmist mode, and an alarming mode in the sense climate change will end the humanity, people will die. So when Bill Gates makes such a statement, even the think tanks, the world shifts their ideas. And the editorial says that Bill Gates should not shift his ideas. He should make a moderate ideology. That is the overall ideology. That is the overall ideology of this editorial. So let's quickly apply the filter and move on to the important points. Let's take quickly. So why are we considered here? He was the respectable center of climate change debate. He showed how American elite understood climate change, science, capitalism. Even policymakers, CEOs, investors listened very seriously about what Bill Gates had to say. But things have now changed, because he has started changing his views. That is the most important thing. So when Bill Gates becomes more alarmist, his tone shifted. Catastrophe, ecosystem collapsing, mass displacement, people dying, apocalypse. So such thing creates a panic in the public, and this is what the editorial called as the climate alarmism. When big people make changes, it creates climate alarmism. This is a vocabulary that you can use somewhere in your answers too. So what is this concept of climate alarmism is very important to be understood here. So now believe that the editorial clearly says that Bill Gates should not create climate alarmism. He should go back to moderation, where you need to say that humanity's survival is not in danger. It is not apocalyptic. Poverty and improving health will reduce climate, etc. You need to come and tell all these things. That is the main idea of this editorial, because the biggest point is his words influence investors, policymakers, philanthropists, big business, and how they think about climate change. So Bill Gates should not follow climate alarmism, and he need to follow a moderate view on various things. So that is the idea of this editorial. It's very simple. That's it. And moving on to the next important editorial that we have to discuss here is regarding AI. This is something that you can use it. AI, once AI has come, it has a lot of jobs are going. AI is replacing people, in the sense now companies need more people who knows how to use the AI. Now I'll quickly tell you the story. The story is very simple. Putting it simple, there are a lot of companies like this. Big, massive companies, they have all started to lay off large number of people, because AI can do a lot of things. And not only that, AI is not replacing people, but they are looking for new wave of people who knows to use AI in a much more better way. So they are getting more jobs. So this is the summary, putting together the summary of this editorial. Now let's apply the filter and get to the most important content. So global companies, AI is replacing, it's not directly firing people. The companies are restructuring, reorganizing teams, shifting budgets. to create large scale. Bye bye human, hello AI. That's what they're doing. So take a close look. Amazon, 14,000 corporate jobs are lost. They said they want more people to be going. Meta has cut 600 jobs in its super intelligence labs, make AI more easy. So not only that, we have Indian company TCS cutting 12,000 jobs. People are losing their job. Microsoft laying 4% of its workforce completely. So all this is an alarming thing. So that is it. AI talent hiring is rising much. India is leading it. Hiring rate of over 33%. India is hiring new people who knows AI. Brazil, Saudi Arabia, because companies need workers who can develop, deploy, and maintain AI system. That is the idea that India is also putting. So AI is not killing jobs. It's creating a new way of jobs which people need to know more about AI. That is the general idea. And this editorial, we'll also have a discussion on this editorial because northeastern states, not only Assam, Tripura, Sikkim, they are getting massive monsoon. So they need to deal with long-term plans with dealing floods. Such questions can be very easy, very important from the perspective of disaster management. So I'll tell you the story in short. Imagine that we have the northeastern states together. This is the story together. We have the northeastern states here. When the northeastern states are here, the most important reason being monsoons. The monsoon's fury, they affect northeast in a large way. It brings massive rain. So what is happening with northeast is take a look at the geography of northeast. Many of them are topographically, you can see the mountains, valleys. So most of them are very fragile region. When a monsoon hits, it has got a lot of rivers. The rivers overflow, the ecosystem and the total geography is very fragile. So Northeast is very vulnerable compared to the other states in India. So what happens is Northeast is always in distress. So Northeast needs, not only small mitigation. Problem solving is not one immediate thing. You need to create long-term plans for Northeast so that Northeast develops the capacity to withstand all these problems. That is the general idea that is being discussed here. So now let's quickly apply the filter, get the most important points for this.